Okay, let's get started by going over the materials you're going to need. Okay, you're going to need gesso, some Mod Podge. I use matte finish, but you can use gloss or satin, whichever one you want. Varnish, matte finish. A container to put your Mod Podge in. Sponge brush for your Mod Podge and a sponge brush for your varnish. A soft cloth that you can wipe dust off with. Paper napkins from the Dollar Tree or any other store you want to get it from. Whatever color you like or pattern you like. Some white tissue paper. A heat tool, a pencil, a Phillips head screwdriver, unless you have the screws that go for a flathead, so either one, and a ruler, sandpaper or a sanding block. I have another sanding block that I've been using, scissors. And I have just a palette that I poured my gesso on and a sea sponge, and I keep it in a paper or a plastic baggie so it doesn't get dried out during the process. And another, this is just like a fleece piece of material, and that's going to be used to keep from sticking to the drawer. Okay, that is all the materials. So let me get this cleaned up and I'll show you the first process of this. Okay, I'm back with the tissue paper. I'm going to show you how I cut it down for each drawer. I just cut on the crease of each line how the tissue was folded. And you're going to need one piece per drawer that you're doing. Now if your project is bigger than the Jetmax drawers, you're going to need to just go ahead and put several pieces on a larger drawer, not just one of these, and it won't matter how it's cut or anything. You can just put it side by side and put it on there. So I got my pieces cut, and then I'm going to just crumple them up. That's how I'm going to be putting them on the drawer. So I'm going to leave these aside, and I cut as many pieces as I needed for my drawers that I need, and I had 21 drawers, so I cut 21 of these ahead of time so I wouldn't have to do it later. Okay. So now I have my napkin. I'm going to unfold it, and I'm just going to tear it down the center crease. You can tear it anywhere you want. If you have a square napkin or a different shaped napkin, you can just tear it. It doesn't matter. And then I'm going to take this backing off. Some backings, they have 2 or 3 backings. This one only has 1, so I just take it off and I'll just get rid of it or use it for something later. It's up to you. Okay. Now I don't want these straight edges, so what I usually do is just tear down the sides and toss those, and tear down the other side, and then this side doesn't want to tear straight like that, so I'll just kind of pull it apart. Okay. Now one thing you can do, let me show you, instead of tearing that long edge that didn't want to tear like this, you can just leave it and tear your pieces to where this edge is still there, but then later when you go to put it on your drawer, you can just hang that edge right over the drawer edge where it's not on your piece, and then it'll come off later. You won't have to worry about tearing it awkwardly. Okay, so here I'm just gonna tear the rest of my napkins in large pieces randomly and small pieces. She'll need both. And I kind of like not straight pieces, just like kind of triangle or odd shape tears. I just like the look of it. I didn't like the look when they were like strips. I'm going to leave those pieces so I can hang them off the edge. And if you have a certain pattern, you can decide what piece you want to show on your drawer better than the other pieces. If, like, I wanted the butterflies to be in certain spots showing, I didn't want to like tear them in half most of the time, so I could see the whole butterfly. And sometimes it didn't work out that way, but I still try to get the whole butterfly on there. Okay, so I got my pieces, and I usually do, I've been doing 2 napkins per drawer so I wouldn't run out of pieces. And while you're doing it, you can also, if you find you need a smaller piece in a certain area, you can tear like something off really small and put it there. Okay, I had some more already cut, so I'm going to use those. Okay, let me get my drawer and I'll come back and show you how to prepare your drawer. Okay, this is my drawer. It's the 12 by 12 cube Jetmax drawer. And what I'm going to do is first take off the handle. Move it over a little bit. And then the next thing I do is I'm going to take my sanding block, and where those screws came out, I just sand it across. Actually, I just want to sand the whole area, just in case there's some other stuff sticking up. And then take my little cloth and wipe off the excess dust. Okay, I forgot to mention that you'll need 2 toothpicks if you're going to use the same handle and put it back on. You'll need to put these in the spots, kind of stick them down in there, because your holes do not go all the way through the drawers on this Jetmax. They only go a little bit, so you will lose your spot of where your handle goes if you don't mark it somehow. And I'm not doing this because I decided to drill some other hole so I can put a round knob on it, and I'm not going to use the handles that came with it. Okay, if you want to put these back on instead of putting knobs on, then I'm going to show you. You can do this before you get started. Take your drill. I have my Dremel tool, and I'm going to get my safety glasses on. And then just drill through the pre-existing holes. They do not go through to the bottom, to the inside of the drawer, so you'll have to do this and drill it all the way through, and I'll do that really quick. Oops. Don't forget my table. Okay. So now they're drilled all the way on the inside. So you can go ahead and prepare your drawers without having to put the toothpicks in, and do everything that I showed you with the napkin and everything. And then when you get ready to put the handle back on, you just have to go through and take, either you could take your skinny drill back through and poke through, or you can get a poker tool and just kind of poke it a little bit, a poker tool like this, and just push through, and it will come out the front. That way you can see where your holes are, so you can put your handle back on your drawer. Okay, just wanted to share that little tip with you. So now you'll want to take your Mod Podge and put it into frame. Okay. Okay, I'm taking my Mod Podge and I'm just gonna put it all over the area. Spread it out, get the corners and the edges. Okay. Now I'm going to take my tissue paper, and it's already crumpled up, and I'm going to kind of lay it on top. And where those holes were, because I don't want those holes showing through on my napkins, so I'm going to kind of double it up in those areas where I see the holes a little bit, and then I'm just going to press down all over the drawer. And we want the wrinkles, if you like that effect. I like that effect. Now I tried this one the very first time I started to use the napkin without the tissue paper, and immediately I didn't like it. It was too thin and it just needed something underneath. Okay, so now try to get all the bubbles out, because you can have wrinkles, but the bubbles, it's better if they're flattened. Okay, now I'm taking my Mod Podge and going back over the drawer. And you can work in sections if you want, because Mod Podge does dry quickly. So you want to either do it quickly. Oh, my brush came apart. Sorry about that. You want to do it quickly, or you want to work in sections. Okay, I'm going to have to get another brush if that keeps doing it. Okay, I'm going to work in sections really quick here, like that. So I'm just going to take and crinkle up my napkin first. Then I'm just going to lay it down randomly on the drawer. And then I'm going to kind of keep the wrinkles. I don't want too big of wrinkles, but I want some wrinkles. And then lightly push down on it to get the bubbles out. Then I'm going to take a smaller piece and wrinkle it up right here to cover that edge. Let's see if I can get this glue without the handle coming off again. I've been working on the whole area, putting the glue all over, because I kind of like to randomly place them and then go back and fill in the insides or the middle. Okay, let's see. I'm going to put this piece right here sideways. Push out all the bubbles again. Here's one of those pieces that have the straight edge, so I'm going to hang it over. Actually, that other piece has a straight edge, but I'll show you how to fix that if you don't want to see the straight edge. Let's see, this piece right here has a straight edge right there. So what I'm going to do is take another piece and just cover that area like that. Remember to try to keep your wrinkles in there, not to just put it straight down, because the effect is, well, I like that effect better than just straight. Now you can tear some of this off if you're not, if you have too much leaning over or hanging over, and use it on another piece. Make sure I got that. Butterfly right there. Just pinch it if you want some more wrinkles. And this is going to be too much excess, so I'm just going to tear it off and put it over here. Tear more off and put the other piece. If it's big enough, it isn't big enough, so I'll get another piece. Let's see. And I have one more piece in the corner to cover. So I will take this. Actually, I want a piece of the rose. A little bit more Mod Podge so it sticks. Okay, when you got all the areas covered, tear that off. You can take your brush, put some Mod Podge on it, and the places that you have like loose papers, you can just go underneath it. And I have to get under this piece first because it's actually under it. Now you want to have very light hands on this because your Mod Podge, the wet Mod Podge will, you might tear your napkin or smudge it a certain way that it won't work right. It won't look right. And I've did that a lot, so I had to kind of learn to be careful while I'm doing it. I mean, you can almost just do anything with it as long as it doesn't tear or stick or make a hole by pushing down on it too hard, because you can't really tell where everything is like connected. Sometimes you can, but most of the time it looks like it flows like a collage. I need a little bit more Mod Podge. These edges. You can lift up the edges and just put it underneath. I don't like how that bent, so I'm going to pull that out as it was showing the underside of the napkin instead. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to take one more piece here because I don't like this one area. Didn't like the way it was looking. So you can do it any way you want. Oh, there goes my brush again. Let me just... And this piece got folded over, so I'm lightly pulling it out. Need a little bit more underneath there, Now you want to cover your whole area with the Mod Podge before you dry it. And you can dry this by leaving it and letting it sit, but it's going to take a long time for you to come back. So I've been using the heat tool. Let's see if I got everything. Okay, just make sure you went over every edge with the Mod Podge before you dry it, because you don't want it to come up later. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to take my heat tool and just dry it. I don't want to get too close to the napkin because the Mod Podge might bubble, so you want to stay about 3 inches back. I gotta turn on the power. I'll be right back. Okay. This is gonna be loud for a second here. Now when I'm doing the heat tool, I kind of just push down or go around the edges with it to get all of the edges creased and make sure they're sticking down. And also if you go along, oh, that piece came up. See, now that's really wet and gooey. Okay, if you go along and you see any bubbles, try to push it down. There's another piece that got bunched up. So I want to smooth that out. But you really have to be really light-handed with that, or you could pull up the whole piece. I don't like that piece right there. It's kind of leaning over too. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish drying this, and then I will come back when it's all dried. And one more thing I want to tell you about the drying is when you start to see the white glue turn clear, you can kind of lightly touch your piece, and if it's not too sticky, then you can go and try to push out some bubbles if you see any bubbles you don't like. But if you do it while it's wet still, you risk the chance of pulling up your napkin with your hand. So I'll be back when I'm done drying this. So I want to tell you, as it got dry, I can touch it, but right here I put another little piece because I didn't like the way it was kind of plain right there. So I just added another little piece. So it's kind of still tacky, but the rest of this is pretty dry. I'm pressing pretty hard on it. So I'm going to finish that piece and then I'll come back. Okay, I'm back. I finished drying. I actually added another little piece over top of the other one because I didn't like a straight edge it had. So this is all dry. I'm going to turn it. And what I'm going to do is take my scissors, try and get it into frame. And I'm just going to go cut the corner to the edge and just, I gotta cut it the other way. Sorry. Okay. Cover my Mod Podge. Okay. So I'm going to cut to the corner, and then I'm just going to follow the edge around with my scissors and cut off the excess. Okay. Follow that all the way around. Okay, now I'm going to take my, you can use a sanding block. I use this too much and it's already down to nothing, so I'm going to use 220 sandpaper, grit sandpaper. And what you want to do is you want to start where the edge is. You want to hold your hands over top of it where you're kind of sanding downward. At first I go like across that crease lightly. If I see anything start to come up, I go downward with it so it doesn't come up by going up. It helps to go across that crease. It kind of gives it a cut line. So once you get it, it'll just peel right off with the sandpaper. Now you have to do this because if you don't sand it, your drawers are going to stick on the edges. I tried to like decoupage it all the way down to the bottom here and on the other side, but it was sticking, so I had to come back and cut it off or sand it off. Now you just want to go in a downward motion, making sure that you don't have any Mod Podge dried left there or any paper or napkin or tissue. Now if something starts to lift like right there a little bit, don't worry about it, just keep going downward. When you're done, it won't show, and you'll be going over it with varnish at the end, so it'll push it back down too. Okay, I'll just do that downward all the way. And it just kind of rolls right off with your sandpaper. If it's too wet, it will start to tear. Some of it might not have got dry while you were heat drying. So you just got to be careful not to go up, because you could pull it off. Now on this part, it's starting to be a little sticky still because it's not completely dry. So I take my terry cloth and I put my hand on that, and that keeps it, and it doesn't stick to that. But it keeps my hand from sticking to it. Get a little lot more. Okay, I'm going to sand the rest of it and then I'll come back and finish the process. Okay, I've finished sanding everything, and I just want to get my dust cloth and make sure that none of the sanding pieces or dust from the sandpaper is on my piece. Okay, at this point I'm going to use the gesso. You don't have to do this, just I wanted a little softer look in my room. And even later, I'm thinking about going back over the ones I've finished already and even putting more gesso on it. I'm not sure yet. I have to wait till till all of them are done to just see what I like. But you can always go back over with the gesso, or even pieces of the napkin, and add pieces where you missed or you didn't like the way it looks. You can go back and change it. Okay, so I got some gesso on my sponge. I've dabbed it onto the tissue so it's not too much gesso on the sponge. And then I'm just going to lightly dab. I don't like to go too far, and then I take this part of the sponge that doesn't have any gesso on it, and then I just kind of pounce on it, because I don't want the gesso to be like bold like that. I like to soften the look. And you want to do it, if you want to dab it like this and get the softer look, do it fairly quickly after you put it on because it kind of starts to dry kind of fast. Now I'm just pouncing on it again. And then if I see places that are brighter, I might go back over there, put a little bit more gesso on it. Let's see. Okay. There's a piece that I missed or the sandpaper took up that piece. I'm gonna gesso it to kind of hide it. If it doesn't do how you like, you can go back over it with the napkins and just redo the process to cover it. I'm not gonna worry about it right now. I don't mind it. I kind of like to do the edges more. I don't know, I just like that look. Let's see, a little bit more right there. Okay. Right there. A different angle in the light, you can see differently. Then I put my sponge back in the baggie and seal it so it doesn't get hard and the gesso stays nice on it. Okay, now at this point I take my heat tool again and I dry it all, and I will come back when I'm finished with it. Okay, my gesso is dried. So now I'm going to take my matte varnish. You can use satin or gloss if you want it brighter or glossier, shinier. I'm going to take my brush. I always keep my brushes in these baggies when I'm not using them, so they stay where you don't have to wash them very often and they don't get dried out. Okay, so I'm going to lightly shake my varnish. If you shake it too much, you're going to put air bubbles in it. So you got to kind of like slowly shake it around. Okay, and I was using a palette for this and then going back, but I had to keep washing the palette because it dries on there and you don't want to get your little spots. You don't want to get the little dried pieces, you know, from like reusing the palette, and so washing it every time was kind of a pain. So I decided I'm just going to pour it on and do it that way. It's a lot easier. So I just put a little bit right in that area and then take the brush and smooth it on. And I kind of go all directions because the wrinkles, you want to get all the varnish in every angle of the wrinkles. Put a little bit more. Now I don't just use the Mod Podge as a varnish, as a top coat. The Mod Podge, you can, but it doesn't seal it as well as the varnish to me, and it's not heat resistant, and I'm not sure how waterproof it is, but you know, in this case you don't really need to know that. You don't need to worry about that. But I have the heater right over top of where I keep my drawers, so I want it heat resistant. And then what I usually do is just go around the edges just to make sure it's sealed all the way around. And I only do one coat of this. I don't really do. If you see it bubbled up, kind of smooth it out, or foamed up. Okay. Now you can let it dry naturally or do the heat gun, which I'm going to do again, and that way it dries faster for me. And I'll be back when I'm done with that. Okay, I've dried the varnish, and the only thing left to do now is to put my knobs on. And I'm going to be using these knobs I got at a garage sale for practically, they were free almost, I'm not kidding. These are like $8 in the store, and I have to buy 2 more, and I'm not happy about that. I'm trying to look for a coupon to use it. So anyway, I'm going to just cover this with gesso to begin with. I mean, you can use a spray or something, but I think I'm going to just try to do the gesso and then white paint over the gesso and see how it holds up. I mean, I can always take it off and spray it again if I want, but I'm just going to measure the center point, then drill, and put my knob on after this dries. So I will come back and show you the finished product after I'm done with that. I thought I'd come back and show you how I'm gessoing the knob. So I'm just gonna put a light coat. I'm gonna move this drawer out of the way. Just get all the metal pieces. And I've used gesso before on mixed media on metal and then painted over it, and it has never had a problem. But I'll be pulling on these drawers, so I'm not sure how that's going to hold up. But I'm also going to seal it afterwards with some varnish, and hopefully that all works, because I don't think I'm going to be doing too much to chip it. Okay, so I'm just going to let that dry. I'm not going to heat set it because it's metal and it'll get too hot for me to hold. So I'm going to let it dry naturally and then go over it another, maybe 2 more times, and then put white acrylic paint over top of that. Okay, and I'll return when that is all finished. I thought I'd come back and show you how I put the knob onto the drawer if you're not going to do the handle. Okay, the first thing I did was measure how far across it was, and it was 13.5 inches long and 4.5 inches on the short end. And so what I did was I took a long piece of paper and I cut out the paper to fit, and then I just folded it in half that way, and then folded it in half the other way, and then marked the center, and then punched a hole in the center. You can measure if you want instead of doing the paper. I thought this would be easier, plus it'll make sure that every knob gets in the exact same spot when you're doing all of them, so that it looks straight in a row when you have them on your drawers back in. And you can measure, I think it's 6 3/4 to the center that way, and 2 1/4 to the center from down. Okay, so what I did is I put this on and make sure it's lined up with all the edges, and I took a wax marker, a white one, because I tried a pencil and there was a darker spot underneath that the pencil wasn't showing up, so I took the wax marker and make sure that's center, and I just want to mark it in the center so I know where I'm going to drill, and then it's right there. So I'm going to put the safety glasses on, and I use the Dremel tool. Now I use the smaller drill bit, the smallest one. I did try to use a little bit larger of a drill bit, but it started drilling up too much of the drawer. So I'm going to use the smallest one, and if you need a bigger, if the hole needs to be bigger, you just go in a circular motion inside your hole until your screw will fit. You might have to go back a couple of times just to try it. So I'm going to go ahead and drill. Make sure that's the spot. Yeah. And I'm just putting my drill on the lowest setting. Start my hole and it goes in really easy. Now I just move it around. I'm going to just move it around to make it a little bit bigger for the screw. Okay, now I have my knob. I'm not finished painting it yet. I just have like one coat of the gesso on it. So I'm going to take the screw and put it on the inside of the drawer. And screw it in so it will come out the bottom. And I'll be back when I'm done doing that, because that's going to take a little bit more pressure. Okay, I'm back. I have the screw screwed in from the inside, and I'm just going to place the knob on top and screw it in. And then I'm going to hold the screwdriver in the screw underneath while I turn it and tighten it up. And there you have your knob on your drawer. And I'm going to finish painting them all, and I will come back and show you the finished drawers once everything's done and painted. I'll see you in a bit. So here are the drawers. They're completely finished, and I finished all the knobs, painting them with the acrylic white paint, and then varnished them. And I don't think that they'll chip or anything. I felt they feel fine when I'm opening and closing the drawers. And I did go back over and add a few pieces of tissue paper or napkin to different parts of the drawer that I wanted to change. Just if you do that, just remember to varnish back over top of that and let it dry. And you can use this technique with tissue paper, colored tissue paper. Also, I did this on a project a year ago, making something for my mom on wood with tissue paper, and it comes out the same way with the crinkles and everything. And so you can use both. I think I did 2 layers or 3 layers on that because they are thin, and you can use that technique on the drawers too. So I hope you like this tutorial, and if you do, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to my channel, subscribe and click the notification button if you want to see more videos from me, and leave me a comment if you have any questions about the tutorial. And thanks for watching. Bye.